يهده الله تعالى فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له واشهد ان لا اله الا الله وحده لا شريك له له الملك وله الحمد يحيي ويميت وهو حي لا يموت بيده الخير وهو على كل شيء قدير واشهد ان محمدا عبده ورسوله وصفيه وخليله ادى الامانه وبلغ الرساله ونصح الامه وكشف الامه وتركنا على المحجه البيضاء ليلها كنهارها لا يزيغ عنها الا هالك عليه افضل الصلاه والتسليم وعلى اله وصحبه ومن سلك بسنته الى يوم الدين. اللهم اجعلنا منهم ومن الذين امنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر امين رب العالمين. ونصير نفسي بتقوى الله وقد امرنا بالحق وقال تعالى يا ايها الذين امنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن الا وانتم مسلمون. يا ايها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحده وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والارحام ان الله كان عليكم رقيبا. اما بعد. I want you to imagine with me for a moment that you're returning home after several decades to a family who didn't even know that you were still alive. There's a story about a great tabi'i. His name is Sherif Abi Abdurrahman. And Farouk was a free slave of Rabi' ibn Zayd, rahimahullah ta'ala. He was praised by Umar ibn Khattab as one of the greatest commanders in the history of Islam. And when he passes away, and he leaves behind Farouk, this is a man that goes out and strives in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, just as he was taught to do. This is a man who follows the path of his mentors. This is a man who spends for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and has absolutely no connection to this dunya. And he marries a woman by the name of Samy. And as he's sitting in the masjid, and the call for the next battle comes to go out on another expedition to Khorasan, he comes home to his now pregnant wife, Sherif. And he says to her, listen, here is 30,000 dinars, Jama'a I have collected through the various missions and the spoils of war, so he invests وأنفقي على نفسك وعلى ولدك. Spend on yourself and on the child that will be born to you. And بإذن ta'ala I'll come back to when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decrees. He goes up, and I'm paraphrasing the story because it's a very long one and I don't want it to become the sole focus of the khutbah. But he goes up for almost 3 decades fi sabilillah. And he comes home 27 years later. And when he enters into the house, the young man that was his son, who did not recognize him, rises up to approach him. And subhanAllah, up until this moment, you can imagine the mental anguish and torture of the wife that was waiting for her husband to come home. And she would ask the expedition, what happened? Did he become a prisoner in the hands of the enemies? And that was a theory. He died in the path of Allah, and that was a theory, and that was the most likely one. What happened to my husband? And some people would say, I think I saw him there, I think I saw him there. But he enters into the house, and this young man approaches him to fight him because he thinks he's a stranger. And he says to him, Ya Abu Allah, where's your husband? Oh, enemy of Allah, get out of my home. Don't you know that you're infringing upon the sanctity of the home? And he says to him, Ya Allah, oh, enemy of Allah, you get out of my house. This is my house. And as the commotion starts between these two men, said that he comes in and he says to Farouk, who's an old man at this point, he says, you can find any other homes. Go to cages, go to another house. Why are you coming to this house like this? There are many homes for you to go to. Why do you have to come into this house in particular? And he says, this is my house. I And the young man says to him that I will not leave you until I take you to Sultan. Allah, I'm going to take you to the judge, I'm going to get you in trouble. Why are you coming into this house and what is this claim? And as they're both fighting, the woman walks in. And she solves the debate. And she says, that is my husband, and that is my son. Meet your father who you haven't seen for almost 3 decades. And subhanAllah, as this family reunion is happening, says to her, what has life been like? And what happened since I've been gone? What happened since 30,000 dinars? How did you spend them? What do we own now? And she said, go to the masjid. And he goes to the masjid, and from a distance, he sees that same young man, wrapped in a turban, and the people all sitting around that young man. And this young man is a teacher of Imam Malik and Imam al-Bahrain. May Allah be pleased with him. This young man is a teacher of the life of Sufyan. This young man has met some of the greatest of the companions in the Tabi'in. And he comes back home. He says to him, فَأَيُّهُمَا أَحَبُّ إِلَيْكَ فَلَا تَمْنَعْ لَهُمَا which of them is more belongs to you? 30,000 dinars of هَذَا الَّذِي هُوَ فِي الْجَنَّةِ or this glory that your son is in. And who was the son? ربيعة رضي الله تعالى عنه رحمه الله, the great scholar and teacher of the Imams. And his investments that he left behind had yielded him a tabi'in for whom you still reap the rewards. Now this is a story that shows up in the books of history. I've paraphrased it for you. Some of the scholars say it's authentic, some of them say it's not, but there's certainly something that sort of like plants the seeds for Rabi'ah, who became Amir al-Khurasan, the Amir of his people, who became one of the greatest scholars of the Islamic tradition. But subhanAllah, over the last few days, as I was looking at some of these people that came out of the prisons of Hannah, after 40 years, can you imagine being in a torture dungeon for 40 years and coming out to your people 40 years later, subjected to all sorts of torture? Your family doesn't even know that you're still alive, rising from a dungeon for 40 years. Allah. The conversations like that. And we see them with the Palestinians, some of them that were taken into the Israeli prisons at the age of 5 years old and coming out at the age of 38 or 40 years old. And you see the shock of a mom, the shock of a spouse, the shock of a child. How do you catch someone up on all of that? I remember interacting with someone who was in a coma for over 10 years. How do you catch someone up who's been sleeping in a bed for 10 years and tell them all that happened over 10 years? How do you explain to the family you're back? These are the types of circumstances. These are the types of adab, the types of miracles that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shows us in our lives. And while none of us, or I venture to say none of us have probably had that type of experience, all of us have been surprised by the qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at various points in our lives. And there is a narration of a man named Muhammad, who was from the Bedouins in the time of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, who was sa'ir al-Sa'ad. In some of the books of hadith, he's the one, or one of the Bedouins that the Prophet sallallahu and said, Mata Sa'ad, when is the hour? Because you could always count on the people from the outskirts to ask the Prophet these direct questions. But he didn't just ask the Prophet ﷺ about the hour. The idea was, you're a prophet of Allah, so you should tell me everything that's going to happen. Because this was a society that was used to soothsayers, that was used to magicians, that was used to people that give them the horoscopes, that was used to people that tell them you're going to marry this person, have this many children. That's the idea of someone that can look into another realm, of someone that can tell you the future. So he says to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Ya Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, قال إن أمرنا أجدد فماذا ينزل الليل? Our land has become barren. We're waiting for rain. So can you tell us when the rain is going to fall? What's our proposal? And I left my wife and she started So can you tell me where I will die? And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveals in Surah Al-Quran, إِنَّ اللَّهَ عِنْدَهُ عِلْمُ السَّاعَةِ وَيُنَزِّلُ اللَّيْلَ وَيَعْلَمُ مَا فِي الْأَرْحَامِ وَمَا تَدْرِي نَفْسٌ مَاذَا تَكْسِبُ غَدًا وَمَا تَدْرِي نَفْسٌ بِأَيِّ أَرْضٍ تَمُوتُ إِنَّ اللَّهَ عَلِيمٌ خَبِيرٌ. That indeed Allah alone has knowledge of the hour, and He sends down the wind, and He knows what's inside the doors. And no soul knows what it will earn tomorrow, and no soul knows in which land it will die, because verily Allah is the all-knowing and the all-aware. And another hadith, the Prophet says that the keys of the unseen are five. No Nabi of Allah knows these five things. And I want you to sit with that for a moment. No Prophet of Allah knows these five things, because sometimes it's hard to understand the psychology of the people around the Prophet. He's so clearly divinely inspired. Why can't you see that? Because they didn't believe in God. Everything in religion had been turned into stones and material. So you have to talk about what's going to happen tomorrow. You have to talk about getting out of this. You have to talk about getting out of God. It's a very transactional people. There's no after. There's no, we die and bones and stones. What is it that we can get out of this? And the Prophet says, there are five truths unseen. No Nabi of Allah, no Prophet of Allah knows these five things, and the Prophet mentioned, إِنَّ اللَّهَ عِنْدَهُ عِلْمُ السَّاعَةِ وَيُنَزِّلُ اللَّيْلَ وَيَعْلَمُ مَا فِي الْأَرْحَامِ. And he recited the ayah, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Now I want you to pay attention to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us in this ayah. He's telling us the who. Allah sends the rain, the who. He's telling us what He sends when He goes into the lake. He's telling us, وَيَعْلَمُ مَا فِي الْأَرْحَامِ. Only Allah knows how it will come. He's telling us, وَمَا تَدْرِي نَفْسٌ مَاذَا تَكْسِبُ غَدًا. When it will come. And He's telling us, وَمَا تَدْرِي نَفْسٌ بِأَيِّ أَرْضٍ تَمُوتُ. And you don't know where it will come. So Allah in one ayah answers the who, how, what, when, and where. And the Prophet called these the five keys of the unseen. And when you sit with this for a moment, Allah has shown the Prophet all types of things. And before the Prophet raised the dead to life. The Prophet has seen the Dajjal. The Prophet has gone from Mecca to Jerusalem, led the prophets to prayer in Aqsa, has been taken to the highest heavens, has seen all sorts of things that you cannot imagine. But even the prophets of Allah and all of these Anbiya of Allah who were able to stop the sun like Isha or who were able to raise the dead like Isa, none of them were told what's happening next. All of them have not been seen. And that's why the Prophet he was at the wedding of the lady. One of the poets started to sing, وَفِينَا نَبِيٌّ يَعْلَمُ بِلَغَةٍ. And we have amongst us a prophet who knows what will happen tomorrow. And the Prophet he could have said, it's poetic license, it's art, it's culture, it's okay, it can mean different things. And in some ways the Prophet told us what will come next. Because if you think of Bلغة as in Yom al-Qiyamah, as-Sa'a, the hour, the day of judgment, he told us some of the signs. So maybe there is something there. But he doesn't do that, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. In the middle of the wedding, the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam stops. And he says, he says, look, Pastors, don't say it. No one knows what is coming tomorrow except for Allah. The premise of this, but your brothers and sisters, is Allah is going to surprise you many times a month. Your life is full of surprises. Surprises as an ummah, surprises as an individual. If you were to look through the ahadith and you look at the words Jama, sudden death, a sudden loss of blessings, or Fawaja, someone who is shocked by something out of nowhere. We are a people that don't like a notice for death, a sudden death, because we like to prepare for death. These things that come out of nowhere. The Prophet says to seek refuge in Allah from a sudden decline in blessings. It's the premise that there are things that are ahead of us that none of us can predict, none of us know. And it is part of what makes the test of Bani Adam and the test of what it is in the first place. That you can have the greatest forecasters, political forecasters, economic forecasters, weather forecasters. They can tell you there's rain in the horizon, they can tell you there's this tomorrow, they can tell you that this superpower is going to demolish this. But then you turn on the news the next day, you come outside, and it is the complete opposite of what was forecasted. And sometimes that news comes to you from different places, and the Prophet loves to remind us of that uncertainty. That in that uncertainty, that's where tawakkul is found in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's where trust in Allah is found, is in the uncertainty of what is to happen. And that's why Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha said, the Prophet used to recite a shi'r, that he used to recite sometimes some poetry, he liked some of the lines of poetry. And she said, radiallahu ta'ala anha, كان يتمثل صلى الله عليه وسلم بشكل النواه. The Prophet said, like the poetry of Ibn Nawah, ويتمثل بقوله يأتيك بالأخبار من لم تزل. That very news will come to you from places you don't expect. And then to do with someone that you did not commission, someone that you did not pay, someone you didn't subscribe to, someone that didn't travel with you, someone that doesn't have any familiarity to you, and someone pops up and gives you news and you have no idea how it came from this person. Meaning you invest in lines of certainty. You plan in certain ways, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shows you that those plans are not actually what makes you move. What does this mean for us as an ummah? As the ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam? Before we talk about the potential of Gaza being free, and Gaza will be free, and Al-Aqsa will be free, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promises. Allah will free it. But before we talk about the way things are looking for Palestine, the way things are looking for the ummah, the projection of this place is the direction of that place, let's actually start with in places where we have certainty. What does this mean for us as an ummah? That we shouldn't be too hopeful in what seems stable. At any point, the most stable land can be overtaken from beneath or above. At any point, the most prosperous population can be tested with poverty. This is the sunnah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That at any point, your hope can turn into despair. Your stability can turn into insecurity. Your safety can turn into fear. Allah can flip it upside down just like that. So as ummah, even the places of the ummah, and I'm not just talking about the physical places, the areas of the ummah where we seem to be stable, we don't put too much stock into that. And on the opposite side, we don't despair in what seems absolutely impossible. I don't see a way. I don't see a way. I don't see a way for victory to come here. I don't see strategically how this is going to happen. I don't see how this is going to happen. It looks bleak. You're right. It can't look bleak. It can't look bleak. But I want you to just take the news of the last 2 weeks and be honest. When you turn on the news, did anyone think that the headline would be South Korea or Syria? Was anyone anticipating any of this? No. Because the headlines change very quickly. And subhanAllah, there's a psychology in the digital age, without getting too deep, that, back then when you talk about your community and uncertainty, you know about your neighbors, you know about things that are happening, down here, there. Uncertainty is whether your animals will give birth, whether the harvest will come. Uncertainty is in the weather. Uncertainty is in something of health. But when you're trying to global events, when you're trying to the world, because it's all at your fingertips, psychologically as human beings, we tie ourselves to global events and to global actors. I'm not talking about celebrities. I'm just talking about larger than life figures, whether they're good enough or whether they're celebrities, or whether they're political leaders. And Allah shows you how unstable that all is, because if you don't know the news that your favorite celebrity died in a plane crash, or your favorite celebrity committed suicide, or the young scholar had a heart attack, or the young political leader died in a car accident. And then these global events shift, and it just shows you that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can turn things upside down For every single one of us, you and I want you to think about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam when he went to Waraqa and he told Waraqa what happens about the experience of Jibreel alayhi salam. And Waraqa said the eternal words they used me at home. I wish I could be alive the day that your people run you out. And the answer of the Prophet was, people running me out? My people are running me out? He's the most beloved of his people, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Think about that physically on a day-to-day. That means that As-Sadiq al-Amin sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, the Prophet walked the streets of Mecca. At that point in his life, people would want him to come into their house. People would shower him with compliments. People would give the Prophet their trust. People would praise the Prophet without it being solicited. The Prophet used to walk through the streets of Mecca like a hero, beloved to his people. And now this man is telling me, your people are running away. Wait, what? And subhanAllah, 10 years later, the opposite circumstance exists where the Prophet can't find anyone to take him in, where it's a surprise that these 6 young men from Yathrib, from the Medina, from the maidens of the Ansar, would tell the Prophet to come into us. Because the fortunes have completely changed to where it was surprising that I would be kicked out. Now it's surprising that I would go out and the Prophet in our hearts. What does this mean for us? Your brothers and sisters, your cars are entirely different based on circumstances that you have zero control over. Your family planning, and you have all these dreams and hopes for your kids, and then a disease suddenly strikes you. I remember being with someone, and when you're in Vietnam or when you deal with people in that zone, you see someone who wakes up in a hospital bed and doesn't remember the car accident. And they're missing limbs, or they're missing something. I don't remember how this even happened. How do you tell someone, by the way, when you look down, and I've been in this situation, you're going to notice you don't have any legs in them. And you don't remember the accident that took away from you. You're planning these things for your career, and then political instability happens. You're planning these things for yourself, you have all these aspirations, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tests you with this. And then your calculations might change altogether because you're planning something entirely different. But the reality is that no person in you is going to have the next 10 years exactly as they predict. No one knows. No one of us is making the calculations to where we actually know what's going to happen. So what do? When we realize we can't determine the future as nearly as you like, no matter what you do, you embrace the uncertainty of the future with your certainty of the one who controls all time and all circumstances. And you focus on what you know. One of the traits of hypocrites is that they tie themselves to the past and the future, but not to the present. They don't live in the present. They say that if tomorrow comes, a different version of you will show up. If you delay me, then I'll switch. Or, send me back, so that I can do good with that which I left behind. The hypocrite lives in the past and lives in the future and has all these supposed selves that will come out in the past different or come out in the future different. The mu'min lives in the present, and the intibah, the calculations of the mu'min, is not waiting for a circumstance that's out of their hands. That's a second. The Prophet especially the lyrics of when trust is lost, then wait for the hour. Ibn Umar says, it's very simple. When you wake up, the calculation that you're making is, I don't believe that I'm going to live to see the evening. And when you go to sleep at night, I don't believe that I'm going to live to see the morning. Because there's a tomorrow that's uncertainty now that takes people up, and then there's a tomorrow that is certain. Where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu taqullaha wa tanzur nafsun ma qaddamat lighad. Oh, you believe, fear Allah, and look to what you have prepared for tomorrow. And this tomorrow, is the hour. And he says, Allah is anything to get judgment so near to us, but it's like a big tomorrow. And so Don't talk about what you might be tomorrow or what you're planning for tomorrow as if a different version of yourself to come out. Expect that Allah is going to surprise you with all sorts of things in life. And have personal love in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that Allah will give you in that process. A good assumption of Allah that Allah will give you in that process will give you the best potential to be the best Muslim. Not the exact specifications of what you prepared. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not let Allah will not let the good deeds which you have planned go to waste. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the best of this life, the best of the next, the practice of the heart, ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. اللهم اغفر لنا وارحمنا واعف عنا ولا تحملنا ربنا ظلمنا انفسنا وان لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين. اللهم اللهم اغفر لوالدينا وارحمهما كما ربنا صغارا ربنا هب لنا من ازواجنا وذرياتنا قرة اعين واجعلنا للمتقين اماما. اللهم اصلح لنا المستضعفين في فلسطين. اللهم اصلح لنا المستضعفين في فلسطين. اللهم اصلح لنا المستضعفين والمجاهدين في فلسطين وفي السودان وفي سوريا وفي كل مكان. اللهم اصلح احوالنا في كل مكان. اللهم عليك باعدائك اعداء الدين. اللهم ارنا فيهم عدالك وقوتك. اللهم اهلك الظالمين الظالمين واخرجنا من بين السالمين. يا الله والله والاحسان وايتاء القربى ويمنع عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. والشروع عن الناس ولا ذكر الله اكبر والله يعلم